Hello and welcome back. My name's Claire Howard, so welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be looking at French polish application. So I'm starting off by cleansing my nail plate, ready for the gel application. The first step to our French manicure gel polish is the base coat, okay? We are always going to be capping every layer of our gel polish application, and here I am applying using a reverse capping technique. I'm then going to scrub and work the product into the nail all the way down, avoiding any skin contact around the cuticle and free edge area. And then we're going to float that over so we've got a nice, shiny, smooth application of our base coat product. The second capping method I'm going to show you is to gently sweep across the free edge of the nail using the very tip of your brush. Use minimal product and avoid getting any behind the nail. We don't want uncured product getting into contact with the hypernicum. So again, we are going to scrub and work that base coat into the nail, avoiding any contact with any of the skin at the cuticle area or down the free edges. Contact with the skin will cause lifting and chipping, so we want to avoid that at any cost, and it would also cause problems when you go on with your next layers of colours, as they will too run into that sidewall. So if you do touch the edges, please remove that with a dry gel brush. So I'm going to continue with the base coat on all of the nails, okay, making sure I work that in, making sure there is no skin contact, and also definitely making sure we have our cap on. We are going to always apply our cap first. That is the first step. This ensures that, number one, we don't forget to apply the cap, and number two, we don't end up putting excess product there and ending up with lumps on the end of our nails. The cap is super important. It is another point of adhesion and it's going to help our nail service last much better. So again, applying the cap, working that base coat into the nail. Always remember, your base coat is one of the most important layers of your gel nail service, okay? If your base coat is incorrectly applied, it's not worked into the surface, it's not capped, then your whole service will break down. Your base coat is what is connecting the rest of your service to the nail, okay? So it is super, super important. So take your time with this one. Make sure your nail's prepped. Make sure you're super, super careful not to get that skin contact, and very careful to get that cap on nice and thin and neat. So going back to the cap, it's a really important part of our service. Like I say, it is an extra point of adhesion, okay, but it needs to be done correctly. If you just slop this cap on and have product running under the nail, not only do you risk causing irritation to your client's skin, you also will have lumps and bits of gel underneath that nail, which is a point that they can pick, okay? We want to avoid giving them anything they can pick. If they've got picky bits, they'll pick them and their nails will come away. So we want to avoid that. That cap is something that you really need to practice. Practice doing it correctly. Practice both methods and see which one works better for you. Then we're going to focus on working that gel into the nail. So make sure it's well scrubbed in. And like I say, we want to avoid any skin contact. Skin contact will lead to, again, it can lead to client irritation, but it will also lead to lifting, and it will cause you havoc when you apply your next colour layers, because gel will follow gel. So if you've got a bit of your base coat touching the skin, your colour will tend to run into that, and that too will touch the skin. So make sure if you do have any skin contact that you tidy that up with either a clean gel brush or an A1 brush or even a cuticle stick. But make sure that that is removed before you cure your product. So after we have scrubbed in and capped our nail, the final step of your base coat is just to gently float over that, making sure you've got that super smooth surface. Before putting the nails into cure, just go back and take a look at all of the nails. Check there's no bits of fluff, no lumps, your client hasn't touched her fingers together, and make sure everything looks perfectly as you want it to be before putting in the lamp. So now we're going to apply the colour coat of our French manicure. The colour I'm using is Versailles. I'm going to start, as we did with the base coat, applying the cap onto the nail, and then we're going to go on with the colour onto the nail. So we're never going to go straight in at the cuticle area. We're going to apply about 3/4 or 1/3 of the way down the nail and then push the colour into the cuticle area. That is to avoid our colour flooding the cuticle area and touching the skin. Okay, so push into that cuticle area and then pull away down the nail. We are again avoiding any skin contact, so we want a tiny free margin around our cuticle area and down the side walls to give us a nice smooth finish, and then we'll move on to the next one. Again, starting with the cap, this time I'm going to use a reverse cap. You can use either cap. Like I said before, find which one works best for you. Just always remember to apply that cap nice, thin, neat, not squelching under the nail, because we don't want any picky bits and we don't want that skin contact. So using my thumb and finger, I'm just going to pull back on the finger. I'm kind of in a squeezing motion. Keeps the finger secure, but it's also pulling back those side walls from the nail, which gives me easier access to those edges so I can get a full coverage of my colour down the nail without getting the skin contact. So just smooth that colour over and wait until you're happy with it before moving on to the next one. The colour we're using here is Versailles, which is perfect for a French manicure. It's a semi-sheer colour, so you're getting that nice natural look. You can apply either 1 or 2 coats of this colour, so just see how it looks and sort of envisage the overall effect that the client wants. If they want a very subtle natural colour, then 1 coat. If they want a bit of a stronger colour, then you're going to want to go in with 2 coats. So just to reiterate, when we go on with our colour polish, our first step is going to be our cap. We're going to either reverse cap or we're going to use this sweeping cap using the very tip of our brush and barely any product, okay? We're just getting a fine coating on the end. We don't want a massive product build-up or any lumps and bumps. This is purely for adhesion of the product. It's an extra sort of anchor point for your colour to get that longevity and to prevent chipping. Chips can often occur if that cap is not in place, so please do ensure that you cap every single nail. Do it first and get in the routine of applying that first, and then you'll never forget it. So we're always going to be going on about 3/4 of the way down the nail and pushing that colour product into the cuticle and sidewall area. We don't want to flood those areas, so we don't want to get too close to them with our initial application of product, okay? If you go straight on at the cuticle, then you're trying to pull all the product away. It's a lot easier to push into that area and use your brush to get nice, neat lines. When we're going over the colour after we've got it in place, we are gently floating over with our brush. We want a nice, smooth, even surface of that colour. If we put too much pressure, we're going to drag the colour and we're going to get streaks in it, okay? So a nice, smooth, floaty motion with that brush. So once we're happy with the application, we get all 5 fingers painted, we are going to go back and just check every nail. You do need to watch your customers, make sure they are keeping their hands still, and just check the position of their fingers as you are going along and applying your colour, because if they're moving and touching their fingers together, you can get smudges. They do like to move about, clients, so do be aware of that and do remind them to stay still. Check every nail before you put it in the lamp. Problems are a lot more easy to correct pre-curing the colour, okay? So just check your edges, check you haven't got any cuticle runs before you cure that product. So now we're going to do our French tip. This is Lecenté Create White Magic on my palette, and I am loading up an S1 brush, which is a striper brush. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to do is get my perfect line in. So I'm going to go from one side halfway across the nail, and then I'm going to look and match up where I started and start from the other side, sweep that line over so the lines overlap and meet. Okay, I'm happy with that line, so then I am going to fill in the rest of the tip using my striper brush, and then I will apply my cap. With all the other layers, we have applied the cap first. It is my preference to apply my line first, and as we're using this lovely superfine brush, we're not going to overload our cap, and we can then apply the cap once we're happy with the white on top of the nail. So you can apply French with the brush from the bottle. I personally favour using a brush. The 2 brushes I use are this brush, which is the S1 brush, and I also sometimes use a D3 brush. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate using both of those brushes, and I would recommend that you try using both because you may find one that you have easier control of or one that you prefer. So the beauty of gel polish is, unlike nail varnish, you have a little bit more time to play with your product. So you can go in and correct areas until you are totally happy with the overall effect. To start with, it may be advisable to do one tip and then pop that in the lamp and then work on your other hand, because it's very, very easy for your client to catch these, and you don't want to put all of that hard work in and then they catch and smudge it. So see how you feel. Maybe you'd like to do all 5 fingers, or maybe you want to go from one finger on one hand, pop that into cure, and then work on the other hand and go backwards and forwards. It just takes a little bit of worry off your mind. Okay, so I'm going in here with the S1 brush again. I have applied my line and I'm now going to fill that in. As you can see, I'm using my fingers to move the client's skin out of the way. So I've been pulling, when I want to move those sidewalls back, I use my thumb and index finger and pull those back in a squeezing motion. Keeps the client's fingers secure and it gets that skin out of my way. I also use my fingers to push back the tip of the customer's fingers when I'm applying towards the edge, the free edge of the nail. Keeping that skin out of the way is super important, okay? So again, if we do get any of the polish on the skin, we're going to clean that off with a clean gel brush or a little Q-tip or something before we go in the lamp. We don't want to be curing that product, and we want to get it off the skin as quick as possible if it does come into contact. So on this nail, I am using the D3 brush. As you can see, it's a much smaller brush. It's a detailer brush. So you haven't got the very long, thin brush like you have with the S1. I love using both of these brushes. We do also have a D1 and a D2 brush, so you could try those as alternatives. So we're very lucky with Create White Magic. This is a really nicely pigmented white, so it is perfect for applying French. So we're looking for a nice even coverage. We want it all evenly white all over, nice smooth finish. We want to make sure our French is quite consistent throughout. We want to try and apply the same kind of thickness on every nail. So make sure you look at where you're starting on your nail and kind of start from those same points on each nail when applying the white tip, the initial line. Remembering our cap, because that is super important for our adhesion and to prevent chipping. And again, being aware of where our clients' hands are, what they are doing with the hands. Are they sitting still? Are they touching things? Remind them they can't go in their bag. They can't play with their phone. It is super important, okay? Especially when you're starting out. This is probably going to take you a little bit longer and you do not want it getting ruined. So please be aware of where their hands are and what they are doing. Also be aware of where your hands are and how you are holding their fingers. It is very easy to be doing, say, the little finger and pushing the thumb down into your desk, okay? So if you are unsure, I would recommend that you do, as I said earlier, and cure each finger as you go and work from one hand to the other. So moving on to the second hand, I have sped this segment of the video up just because this is quite a long section and I didn't want to keep you here watching for hours. So this is sped up, don't worry, I don't work quite this quickly. So yeah, my main pointers for French are just obviously try and get a nice even shape on your nails, work at making sure your white is consistent and even in colour and the thickness of your white tip on every nail, okay? You don't want to end up with the French on some fingers being twice as thick as on others, so work on that. Always check where you're starting on the nail. Make sure that you start at the same kind of length down the nail on the other side so it matches up nice and even. Again, they don't want their white starting halfway down one side of the nail and a quarter of the way down the other side of the nail. You want nice, even and consistent. So like I say, using the detailer brushes, the S1 and the S3 are the brushes I favour, are going to give you a much neater, more precise French application than applying straight from the bottle, where you do run the risk of getting a lot of product underneath the nail. And as always, we want to avoid any skin contact. Another little point that you will see in the video just coming up is how I use my little finger to anchor myself as I'm applying this French. I do see many people try to apply French and their hand is up in the air. It is very, very difficult to keep your hand steady if you don't have anything to anchor or lean on. So I do always find an anchor point, and just using the side of my hand or my little finger, it steadies me as I'm applying this white. So experiment and find your comfy position, but don't try and dangle your hand in the air and paint a French. It is so difficult to get a straight line, okay? Find that anchor point. And also don't be afraid to move your client's fingers. You'll see from this video that I am moving my client side to side. I'm moving them up and down. I'm not just letting them stay in one position. You need to move. You need to look at all the different angles to check that you've filled in all the gaps, that your lines are straight either side, okay? So try moving them around. Don't worry. Some clients are really, really stiff. Just ask them to relax and keep with it. Keep moving, because that is going to get you a much better finish. You're going to be able to see all the angles, and it's much more comfortable for you to work if you can maneuver them to where you want them to be. Okay, so you may have spotted, as I mentioned earlier, my client's nail is rubbed against my glove, and so we have a smudge in our French. I am going to use my A1 brush here, and I am just going to sweep away that imperfection underneath, putting my line back in the correct place, and then I'm going to go back in with my detailer brush and just fill that in, okay? Like I say, this is the beauty of a gel polish. You have got room to manipulate and play with it before it goes in the lamp. These things are much more difficult to correct after curing, so please always go back and check, because had that have gone in the lamp and cured as it was, I would have had to remove it all by filing. Okay, so just a sweep of that A1 brush has put my line back in the right place, and I have been able to easily correct this nail and pop it back in the lamp. And now for top coat. So top coat is the coat that brings everything together and just makes the nails look fabulous. We're gonna start again doing our cap, so you can do a reverse cap or you can do the sweeping cap. Either one is fine, but getting that cap on the top coat is super, super important, okay? Our top coat is what is gonna protect what's underneath. It's the most resistant coat of our gel polish system, so it's more resistant to all of those things outside that your clients are gonna come into contact with, so this coat needs to be on perfect. So we want to make sure that our top coat overlaps all of the colour. Everything needs to be encapsulated in that. So we're getting our cap on perfectly, getting right up to the edges, right around the cuticle. When I say right up, we're still leaving that tiny free edge. We still don't want any skin contact, okay? So we're encapsulating what's underneath, but still avoiding those edges and getting everything nice and neat. So we'll apply our cap. Then, as we do with the colour coat, we're going to go on about 3/4 of the way down the nail and push that product into the cuticle area, down along the side walls, and then float it over. We want to see a nice, smooth, floaty finish, all right? So when you look at that in the light, you shouldn't see any lumps and bumps. We don't want any bits of fluff poking out, any bits of dust. So make sure you check before you pop that in the lamp, because how it goes in the lamp is how it's going to come out of the lamp. So we want it coming out perfect. We want that shiny, glassy, beautiful finish. So just recapping, pointers to remember when applying our top coat is, first step is your cap, okay? Super, super important getting that cap on. Then we're going to go about 1/3 of the way down the nail, push that product into the cuticle area, and then pull back to cover the full nail and pushing into the side walls and back again. We're using a light, floaty movement. We don't want to apply too much pressure and get streaks in the top coat. We want it to be nice and smooth and even, okay? So just move your nail, shine it in the light, and that'll show up any imperfections there. You can use the top coat if you've got a tiny dent or something in the nail, just to fill that in, okay? And that is it. Once you've got your top coat on, you should have an absolutely gorgeous set of nails. So just double check that before it goes in the lamp. Again, a bit of fluff can be so annoying, so make sure you remove it before it goes in. Again, this hand is sped up, so we're just going through the process of applying the top coat onto every nail. As you can see, I'm using the light and just moving my client's fingers to check that it's nice and even, that we've got a smooth application before popping it in the lamp to cure.
The thing is, when you've got a trade and you know other people in the trade, that'd be brilliant to do.
So once we've applied and cured our top coat, we're then going to go in with Lecenté finishing wipe on a Lecenté plastic backed pad, and we are just going to remove any tacky layer from that product, and we're going to wipe over the top and underneath the nail. Okay, it's a thorough cleanse. We're making sure there's no uncured product there and making sure everything's finished beautifully. We are then going to apply our client's cuticle oil, apply to every nail, and then rub in everywhere. I massage it in around the cuticle area, down the sidewalls and under the free edge, and at that time take the time to explain to your client how they need to be applying their cuticle oil twice a day, so you can chat them through that while you are applying it. And there we have our finished French manicure. So I just want to say thank you for joining me on this video, and I hope you've enjoyed it and picked up some useful, helpful tips. If there's anything in particular that you've felt has benefited you and you enjoyed them, please drop me a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more upcoming videos.